Good morning, world changers. I hope you're all well. So we're back for another values-led conversation with Alan Williams, the creator of the card game ValuesJam and the larger-than-life Gemma Ray. So Gemma has many strings to her bow. She is a BBC radio presenter, best-selling author, communication specialist, and admits she will always be the filthiest person in a WhatsApp group chat. She is also an expert in procrastination, but learning the art of self-discipline to master her procrastination has been a key factor in her success and overall happiness. In her own unfiltered, powerful and charming way, Gemma can always be relied upon to inspire you to pull your finger out so that you can achieve your goals too. As Gemma is an oversharer with no filter and a potty mouth, I have no doubt this is going to be a very engaging and brutally honest values jam. So guys, it's over to you. I will sit back with my popcorn and enjoy the show, and I'll see you at the end. Enjoy.
Bye.
Thanks, Susie. Morning, Gemma.
Morning. What an intro.
Yeah. How are you going to live up to that?
No, because I was like, I don't need to swear. I can turn it off. I can go into presenter mode. It's fine.
So thanks very much for agreeing to play Values Jam. And what I'll do is I'll just explain to you where it came from, the idea in the first place. And then we're just going to dive in. And I hope that's okay. We're not going to procrastinate. We're just going
to pull our finger out and get shit done. Yeah.
That's it. So the game was actually inspired by the concept of a music jam. So, you know, when musicians come together, they kind of no idea what's going to happen. They're just curious and playful. There's no kind of qualification about, are you good enough and all this sort of stuff. And they just go for it and they see what happens. And then during a music jam, if somebody messes up, if somebody, you know, makes a mistake, then they don't stop and hold an inquisition. They just embrace it, carry on, and maybe actually build it into the development of what they're playing. And when we were thinking about that kind of spirit, we thought that's really cool. And we liked that sort of approach, and so decided on the name Values Jam and those principles for our game. So this is the box of cards, and inside there's a little bit of blurb about how to play, but there's not really very many guidelines because we've designed this specifically to be intuitive rather than directed. What I'm going to do, if it's all right with you, I'm going to split the deck into like 5 piles.
Okay.
And I invite you to choose number 1 or a number from 1 to 5, if you would.
Number 1, please.
Number 1. Okay. So now we've got 6, 8, 10, 13. So 1 to 13.
Oh, it's got to be 13. Unlucky for some, hopefully lucky for me.
Ooh, right. Now, that's right up your street.
Oh. Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so the way that it works is that we start with a first question and we end with a last question, but in between there's 4 questions that we can choose from, and we'll see how that goes. So to start with, what does independence mean? What does it look, feel, sound like?
So as that card flashed up, the first thing that came into my head was independent woman.
Okay.
And I thought of the Declaration of Independence from a political, cultural standpoint. And then I thought this links to my inability to ask for help sometimes because I'm so independently minded and stubborn and strong-willed. So those are 3 different things that came to mind immediately for me when you flashed that up.
Okay, and do you want to expand on any of those? I mean, with you, what you've just done is brilliant, because when I first started to play Values Jam, things would come into my head and I found myself thinking, oh, should I say that yet? Or should I say a version of it or something slightly different? But I've learned that now I just kind of say it. So, and you've just done that straight away, which is great. But thinking about those things coming into your head, would you like to kind of build on any of them?
I think, in fact, I had this conversation with my husband last night. So we've got a little boy who's 10 years old.
Yeah.
And myself and my husband both work full time. Arguably, I work more full-time than him, not to be competitive, but I am going to be competitive. So my average day starts at 5 in the morning and finishes at 10 at night. And my husband gets in at 4 o'clock, sits on his arse and plays Call of Duty, and has to be asked specifically for help, for things to do. And over the years, like that, I used to resent that a lot in the past, but now I understand that my husband thinks very linear. It's one thing at a time. I was once in a taxi on the way to Lime Street Station in Liverpool, and I had the best Scouse male taxi driver who created this analogy for me. And he said, when you look at the brains of men and women, imagine it's a wall of drawers. And in each drawer, there's something that they have to deal with. And he says, and I feel that men open a drawer and then shut it. So football, shut it. Mates, shut it. Wife, shut it. Kids. And when you look at a woman's drawers, they're all fucking open and they're spilling out everywhere and she doesn't know which ones are freaking open first or shut. That is exactly what I feel like my life is like, because I feel like I have to be an independent person with all this mental load because my husband doesn't see the mental load. Yeah. So sometimes it's easier for me to just take it all on board. But then, and there was another great analogy that I heard. It's like when you're and I'm stereotyping here, and I know this, I'm speaking from experience and from people that I know. As a working mum, it's like I've got this rucksack on my back where I put everything in. So, rugby, after school club, needs a gum shield, matching socks, walk the dogs need injections, everything gets put in the backpack. And over time, I'm hunched over and I'm carrying this backpack. And everybody gets annoyed with me because I'm a bit hunched over and everything's a lot, but they don't see the backpack. But I'm also not very good at unpacking the backpack, and I'm also not very good at saying, can you take this off me for a minute? And I think sometimes my own independence is my worst enemy.
Mm. And to what extent do you think it's sometimes your best friend?
Because I know I can rely on myself. And I think that comes back to my whole message of so I write books on self-discipline and stopping procrastinating and achieving your goals. And for me, that only happened when I started to reframe self-discipline and daily actions as a series of promises to myself that I get to keep. Because when I keep my promises to myself, I start to trust myself. And when I start to trust myself, I believe in myself. Yeah. And when I believe in myself, I'm not procrastinating because I've got this shit. Independent woman is doing this shit. And I think that's what it comes back to for me, is my independence sometimes means that I am self-sufficient and reliant on myself, because ultimately at the end of the day, we can only rely on ourselves. We're only in control of how we think, how we act, how we behave. And that's why that is sometimes my greatest strength. So Gretchen Rubin, an author, wrote a book called The Four Tendencies, which talks about the 4 different ways where you like to be accountable. So there's 4 sides to this coin. There's the obliger, so somebody who does something because other people have asked them to do it. There's the rebel, the person who just goes, nah, to everybody. And then the opposite side of those are the person who is reliant on themselves and does things for themselves. And then the person who does things for external validation. So I know I'm a cross between being an obliger and doing things for other people because they've asked me to, but also doing things for myself because I know at my core that these things make me better. They make me feel better. They make me happier. So I think independence is about knowing yourself, trusting yourself, liking yourself, and understanding that you can get stuff done when you feel like that about yourself.
Yeah, and a lot of what you said I relate to, because I think I'm getting a bit better, but I tend to be overly independent as well. And the reason for that, I think, is because I know I can get stuff done. And I know that sometimes when I involve other people, things might not get done to the standard that I would have done it. And then I get upset about that. But recently I've started to, not recently, but increasingly, I suppose is a better word. I've started to think less about what I'm doing and more about what can be achieved with other people involved, and even not me being involved. So for instance, I attended, it was a pitch competition for a small fund for a global poetry showcase initiative that I set up this year. And we were up against several other pitches, and the one that actually won it was a tree planting campaign. And because World Values Day was coming up, it happened on the 21st of this month, I said to the guys that were doing the tree planting, we've got a Reconnecting with Nature initiative as part of World Values Day. Would you like to do an event on the 21st? They were delighted. I introduced them to somebody who plants trees in India, and they were delighted at that. And then yesterday I had a call with them, and they said, oh, do you want to take part in blah, blah, blah? And I was like, well, no, my interest is not wanting to take part in your initiative, but I felt that it could help by providing you with a platform and introducing you to somebody else. So I'm starting to realize that you can actually have possibly a greater impact when you're not doing anything, but you're actually putting other people together or providing a platform for other people for what they are doing. Mm-hmm. And actually, the other thing I need to share with you, maybe I shouldn't, but I think you need to change that story about a taxi driver, and they need to be cupboards, so you're not talking about rifling in women's drawers.
Yeah, fair enough. I wasn't talking about my knicker drawer.
And then the other part of the question is about independence. What does it look, feel, and sound like? And so for me, it looks like, I'm okay, thanks. You know, it's like, no, I don't need your help. Or no, maybe that's what it sounds like. Yeah, I don't need your help. I'm okay, thanks. And what it looks like is, yeah, you with your rucksack, that's me with like a heavy load struggling up a hill. And what it feels like, it's a real contradiction for me, because it's a lot like you said. I love my independence. I love being able to get things done, but then sometimes it's a bit lonely, and you know, it's nice to be interdependent rather than dependent on somebody else. How do you feel about that, actually? What's your view on dependence and interdependence?
So I think, first of all, I would class myself as an extroverted introvert. So I'm loud, I'm bubbly. I will, as my husband says, talk a glass eye to sleep. I'll speak to anybody, I'm not bothered. But it gets to a point where I've done too much peopling and I need that time to decompress on my own. So, for example, I get up to 2.5 hours earlier than the rest of my family every day, because I need that time on my own. I need to be with my own thoughts. I need to do my own self-care. And that makes me a better person to be a dependent. So if my dependent is my son, you know, for him to depend on me means that I need my independence on my own and my solo time to be able to recharge my batteries. When it comes to things like relationships, I think in the past, I have definitely been quite codependent, particularly with my husband, and projecting as well things onto him. I have one of the most popular blogs on my website is about how I dropped expectations and it saved my marriage, because for the first 5 years of our marriage, I expected Sean to know what to do to help me. And again, this goes back to that asking for help. I never explicitly asked him for help. There was never can you bath the baby while I put a wash? There was nothing of that. I expected him to know that I needed all of this support. And it made me very resentful. So then I was very codependent in that way. I needed him to be a certain way for me to be happy. And actually, when I realized that all Sean's ever done is love me for exactly who I am, the independent woman that I am, he's never tried to change me, he's never tried to control me, he trusts me implicitly. And when I realized that and dropped those expectations and realized that he doesn't do things intentionally to annoy me, he doesn't, like when he puts pots on top of the dishwasher, instead of taking the extra 3.5 seconds to put them in the fucking dishwasher underneath, he doesn't do that to intentionally piss me off. He does that because his head is somewhere else. In the same way that I leave my bras hanging on door handles, I don't do that to annoy him. I don't park the car shit to annoy him every day. I don't drive into the bins continuously to annoy him. I do it because my head is somewhere else. And so understanding that and learning to let that small shit go has been life-changing for us. We are the happiest we've ever been because we are two independent people with independent trains of thought, and we understand and we realize that we are quite selfish in our thoughts. And if we don't want to be selfish in our thoughts, we have to communicate and we have to ask the other for help. And one thing that I learned to drop through my own personal development journey were the words, you make me feel like. When you do that, that makes me feel like this, because I realized that how I feel is my shit. That's my stuff to deal with. It's nothing to do with him. And that works in every single other relationship in my life, whether it's at work, whether it's with my kid, my parents, my sisters. Nobody can make me feel a certain way. It's how I choose to respond in any situation. And that, coupled with the understanding of expectations and knowing that people aren't intentionally annoying you, has been absolutely transformational. It really has.
That's so great to hear. And so I'll give you some examples, not as funny as yours, but some examples in return. And I love your, the 3.5 seconds thing, because my gran used to say to me, if you're going upstairs, take something with you that needs to go up, because that's how I live. Like this morning, I emptied the dishwasher and put a pan in the cupboard. And while I was putting the pan in the cupboard, I found myself thinking, shall I take the frying pan out that I'm going to use for dinner this evening?
Saving time.
That's right. And then I do find myself saying, why have you left the microwave oven door open and the cutlery in the drawer? It's like, why are they not all facing the same way? It's like, what is the world coming to?
On the grand scheme of things, what does it matter as well?
Well, on the one hand, yes. And so I'm with you in terms of, they're not doing it intentionally, and it's up to you how you deal with it. However, in a slightly weird way, the time thing, I think, is still important to me, because the way I figure it out is that, imagine if in your life you're saving those 3.5 seconds hundreds of times a day, then that adds up to like days that you can be doing great stuff with, that you might otherwise have just been doing boring stuff with. And so I think that trade-off is worth it, but not everybody understands that.
They don't, and that's my whole kind of brand. So I'm not at home. It's a shame I'm not at home and I can't show you, but I have mechanical egg timers. I time everything, absolutely everything. And we do it. So I'm at work at the moment at Body Smart, where I'm head of creative, and we time everything, and we make efficiencies. We test everybody's typing speed. We assess people's message responses and time, and we make time efficiencies. And we do things like, oh, such and such a body has got quicker at this. That's going to save 73 hours a year. That's a lot. So we are massive efficiency geeks, like huge geeks. So one of the things, I do an end of day report back every day of what I've achieved and what I've done. And we put timings on everything, because how can you know what you've got to do, and how can you have those boundaries and that independence again to be able to say, yes, I can do that, or no, I can't do that, if you don't know how long things realistically take. And so that's why I time absolutely everything. It takes me 12 minutes to write an email. 8 minutes to write a social media post, 16 minutes with emojis and hashtags. It takes me 45 minutes on average to do a testimonial. I know this because then I can go, all right, I've got 30 pieces to do. I'm going to need, I don't know, 8 hours or whatever it is. And it means that I can manage my workload. I can manage my boundaries. I can manage my mental bandwidth, that load. And it's because when you are working independently as well, I've been that freelancer. You talked about it before, you know, feeling a bit lonely in that space. And it is about understanding your own capabilities and your own, how you work independently, but also how you can work as part of that team and what you can do and how you can fit in. So that's also really important to me in my day-to-day role of being efficient in what I can do.
And that I've got 2 stories to share with you. And actually this has happened to me in this ValuesJam. This is something that happens, we've found in ValuesJam a lot, is that people go, oh, this has just crossed my mind, which I haven't thought of for years. So the first story is from 1981.
That's the year I was born.
Is it? Okay. So I was on my industrial release year working in a hotel in my year out from university. And I was in a hotel, and one of the jobs that I was asked to do was kind of put the wage packets together. So it was pounds and coins then with a pay slip in a little envelope.
Little brown envelope, and they're about that big, weren't they?
Yeah, that's it. And so I was there, you know, counting these coins, and the assistant manager, Philip Russell, his name was, came in and he said, can you just sit on the other side of the table a minute? So what's going on here? And he sat down and he just went bam, 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 like this. And it was like 10 times the speed that I was doing it. And you've just made me realize, actually, this is another influence. Actually, that experience was something that taught me that it's your choice whether to go like snail's pace or whether to get on and get it done. And actually, you're making me realize when I'm out walking in the street, it really pisses me off when people are dawdling.
Sideways walkers.
Or on your phone dreaming. And it's like, if you've got somewhere to go, get there, right? Otherwise, why bother? Yeah, that's, and what was the other story? It's escaped my mind now. Measurement. No, forget it, it's gone.
Going back to what you said there about choosing to work at snail's pace, I think sometimes though there's definitely a need to slow down and meander and wander along. I think like in my role, it's all about productivity and efficiency, but I'm also expected to be highly creative. Yep. And productivity is the enemy of creativity. It really is. So I can see Albert Dock in Liverpool, for example, where I am, and sometimes taking that half an hour walk and walking slowly, and not because I'm trying to get my steps in and reach my health goals, sometimes just taking that half hour walk gives me, it lightens that backpack, it lightens that load to be able to release that creativity and think a bit clearer. But when you were talking there about choosing to go at snail's pace, have you heard of something called Parkinson's law?
No.
So Parkinson's law is basically the premise that work expands to fill the time available.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So if you've got a deadline of 5 o'clock today, you can guarantee you might have thought about it on Monday, might have done a bit of prep on Tuesday, but you're probably going to do everything at 4 o'clock today to get it done for 5. I am a deadline dancer. I am a last minute Larry. My history in broadcasting, broadcast journalism, writing, I'm used to deadlines. And so for years, I had this guilt and shame that these deadlines, I was such a failure because I always left everything to the last minute. And now what I do is, instead of thinking and having it on my list for 2 weeks that, the deadline is Friday the 29th at 5 o'clock, I plan it in for 3 o'clock on Friday the 29th. And I do my best panicked, adrenaline, cortisol fueled 2 hours of deep, dedicated and focused work at that time. Because Parkinson's law, if you imagine like a graph, it's like the timeline's here and the effort line is here. So you kind of just go along. But if you know you've got a deadline and your time is short, your effort spikes. And we can work faster, more efficiently when there's a bit of urgency. I'm not saying that that's healthy to do all the time at all, being in that stress state, but you can shorten the time that you've got to get stuff done, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I've got a question though, I think that's coming through for you here on this, because I am a bit, I will leave it until it needs to be done. But there are actually two more complex reasons for that than just not being bothered. One is that I'm like, if something else crops up, I choose to do that because I'm confident that I will meet the deadline for this thing that I'm working on anyway. So it's my way of getting more done in the same amount of time. Whereas if you say, oh no, I'm busy with this other thing, then you've lost it forever and it won't get done. So, you know, it's a missed opportunity. And then the second thing is that I find that I'm at my best when things are iterative. So I like to think about something quite early in the process and do some of it, maybe 2/3 or something like that, but then not finish it. Because I know that I'm going to be able to finish it to a higher standard if I allow it to kind of settle and float around, and then I can do more. So how do you feel about those two additions?
I've got a tip for you on that last one. Something I do, I use voice notes. So let's say a job comes in to me, but there's a 2-week deadline on it. I will voice note how I feel in that first instance, what my initial thoughts are, where I'm thinking it's going to go, what's going to need to be done, who's going to need to be involved, and I record that. And then sometimes I might set like an alarm, like, hey Siri, remind me in 2 days to listen to that voice note. And I'll listen. Oh, I've just said it now. I'm gone. Siri's going to go off. Sorry for everybody else there. And I might listen to it again in a couple of days, and it just keeps
Okay, your reminder is set for Sunday.
Thanks, Siri. And so it keeps it what I like to call top of mind and a bit fresh in mind. Another thing I like to do is write things out in my own handwriting. I'm a daily journaler. So I might just write a couple of lines in my journal of initial thoughts of how I feel about it. I also will think, right, what's involved? It goes back to me being a sad anal egg timer wanker. It'll go back to that thought process of how much time is this going to take me? So I'll give you an example. I was off last week. I get a job in on Monday. Oh, the website copy needs doing. I haven't seen any of it. So I was able to go in, look at how many pages. I timed myself doing the first 2, took an average, and then was like, it's 23 hours of work here. Right. So I now need protected time on Wednesday. So then I was able to say on Wednesday, right, I need you to, I'm not attending the meetings. I need you to block this time out in my diary. I've got some protected time there to focus on doing the copy. And I'm not far off. I'm going to get it done today. And I reckon I've probably done it in actually about 15 hours in total, because it's again that Parkinson's law. I've needed that effort.
Yeah.
I've needed the distractions taken away. I've needed going back to this theme, I need to be in my own independent cocoon on my own to be able to focus and do it. So just a couple of tips there that really, really help me when it comes to that.
So let's move this conversation on with another question then. And we've talked a lot about independence and how time management and really proactively looking at that can really strengthen your independence, I guess, because the more you can do on your own, the less you need from other people. But where have you noticed a lack of independence?
It's not like me to be lost for words at all. Is it bad that I actually cannot think of anything?
No, but it's interesting, isn't it?
I'd like to say the question again.
Where have you noticed a lack of independence?
Probably only when I was younger. So I said before about being an extroverted introvert. I used to hate being on my own, like hated it. Me and my sister, when we grew up, we had no heating where we lived. We didn't grow up in the best of financial circumstances. And so me and my sister shared a double bed with heated blanket underneath. And I used to be like dressed head to toe in warm stuff, fluffy socks. So me and my sister shared a bed probably from when I was 8, right up to being like early teens, before we then moved and we were able to have a room and each. So I think that early dependence on my sister, and she's my ultimate best friend. She's not just my sister, she's my ultimate best friend. She's the person I'm closest to. I think that when it came to then being a teenager and in my early 20s, I really was uncomfortable with my own company. And then I took the drastic decision when I was 24 to go traveling on my own. And I went to Australia, New Zealand, and for the first time in my life was by myself with my own company. And I think it was that forcedness of having to be my own best friend, which definitely changed the course of my life. Like, for example, when I traveled Australia, that's where I learned the absolute joy of sitting in the window of a coffee shop with a great cup of coffee, people watching the world go by, and journaling. That was when my kind of true journaling journey began. And so, yeah, for me, that at that point when I was younger, I didn't like being with myself and my own thoughts. And now it's absolutely necessary for me to function as the best version of Gemma.
That's a great example.
Independent.
I've two come to mind for me. One is a kind of big picture example, and the other is about, you just made me think about my daughter when she was younger. So I'll do the big picture one first. And what came to my mind was people that are on benefits and the impact that must have on people unless they're careful about it. Because I can imagine that it is soul destroying, actually. You know, it makes you think that you are not capable of doing, and you've got to rely on the state providing for you. And that must be really tough to deal with, actually.
We used to walk to the dole office every Tuesday in the holidays with my mum so she could sign on. She hated it.
Yeah.
She hated it. We used to steal the pencils, had tiny pencils. I loved it, it was great. We used to go look at all the jobs on the wall. Mum, look at this one's paying this, or this one's paying that. But it was just not nice for my mum at all. It really wasn't. But it's what we needed to do.
And it's a bit philosophical, but sometimes I just think we don't think things through enough to realize that, just now thinking about this, it's not the answer, you know. And I'm wondering if, you know, imagine if in society, and actually, so this thinking, I used to be on free school meals at school, and because I was lucky, I was the only boy in my street that passed the 11 plus, so I went to a grammar school, and you know, I was the only one not with the posh blazers, with kind of one of a few that had free school meals. And you know, the intention is that it's supposed to be helping you, but actually it causes you all sorts of problems because other people know that you're different, and you know, you're not as wealthy as they are and all that sort of stuff. So with benefits, I'm just wondering, you know, imagine if everybody received enough money to pay for the basics in life. So shelter, heating, food and water, and that was a given for everybody. And then above and beyond that, you know, you did what you did, and some people did well and other people did less well. But it would remove that stigma from standing out because, oh, you need this. So that's the first quite serious and deep example. And then the second one example of lack of independence is my daughter, when she was about 16, she said, oh, I heard some people talking about going traveling between finishing A levels and university. And I said, okay. And she said, and I'd love to go to Australia. So I said, okay. And she said, but it's too expensive. So I said, oh, really? She says, yeah, it's really expensive. So I said, do you know how much it is? And she looked at me and she said, well, no. So I said, well, are you making that up then? And she said, what do you mean? So I said, well, why are you telling me it's expensive if you don't know how expensive it is? Go and find out how much it is. So she found out, and I said, how long do you want to go for? And she said, well, probably 6 months, something like that. So how much is it going to cost for you to, be over there? Could you get a job while you're there, do you think? All this sort of stuff. So by the end of it, she had a number, and she said, oh my, that's loads, isn't it? So how am I going to get that? So I said, well, when are you leaving school? In 2 years' time, right? So you've got 2 years to get this stuff together. And we did a deal with her that we pound matched whatever she earned. And then she went to Australia, had a brilliant time over there. So that's the other example of lack of independence, where her mindset initially was, I can't do it. It was like not even considering it. When I look back, it was like, it wasn't making a choice that you couldn't. It was not even being aware of the possibilities at all. So those are my two examples. Now, there's another question on here that I wonder if you would have a go at. So it says, ask your own question about independence. And it begins with who, what, where, when, why, or how.
God, I think we might have answered some of these already.
Yeah.
The ones I'm thinking of in my head. Say it again.
Ask your own question about independence, and then beginning with one of those open question words. I've got one.
Go on.
Who would you give as an example of somebody who is a brilliant example of independence?
I'm biased here. Frame of reference. I have such huge admiration for single parents flying the flag for independence. I think my husband goes on 24-hour call every 4 weeks, and I don't see him for that week.
What's he do?
He works as an electrical engineer for the energy network, so he's off fixing pylons and doing stuff at all hours when emergencies happen. And I call myself a single parent in those weeks, and they're incredibly difficult. For all of me taking the mick out of him for not putting the pots on the dishwasher and sitting on his arse playing Call of Duty for 4 hours every night. Love him. I realize actually in those weeks that he does help, and we are a team, and I'm not a lone player in this. But did you see what happened in America yesterday? So Joe Biden's whole presidential campaign, one of the things that he pledged was 12 weeks of paid maternity leave for new mums.
Right.
Now it's 0. So there's a huge kickoff in America at the moment, because America is, one of the there's no paid maternity leave for mothers. And there's lots of examples. There's a lady called Eve Rodsky who wrote a book called Fair Play, which actually is a card deck book and a book. So I'm sad that I'm not at home, because I'm going to be getting your card decks, because these are one of my secret indulgences. Honestly, I must have 30 packs of card decks for everything, right? For every event, you name it, I got a card deck. I love them, absolutely love them.
You have to be aware that this is not a setup, but I just need to tell you this now, because if I forget, I wouldn't forgive myself. Until, it's the 29th today, so until the 31st of October, if you order your card deck or decks, we will send you a free one that you must pass forward to somebody else.
Oh, perfect, because we do this on our team meeting. We have a question on our team meeting every week, so that's why I've got so many of them. So yeah, I will definitely take you up on that. But yeah, Eve Rodsky wrote this book called Fair Play. She's a lawyer, she's got kids, and basically the whole premise of Fair Play in the card deck is that all of the kind of family responsibilities are on cards.
Yeah.
So it might say like pets, house insurance, medical, childcare, cooking, trash. And so the idea is that you play this with your partner and you lay out all the cards and you work together to figure out who's going to do what, because again, women are quite often carrying this mental load in that backpack. And so she's been spearheading a lot of the conversation over the last 24 hours about this maternity pay issue in America. And I just, the thought of being a brand new mum and having to go back to work after a couple of weeks after having a baby absolutely blows my brain. There was a lady I saw who her post had been shared, and she stood there with her kid, 6-week-old baby, and a cesarean scar is hanging out, and the wound is nearly open. And she's like, I'm going back to work. Come back to work on Monday. And I'm just looking at that like that's not right. There's our economies are built on the unpaid work of a lot of women. And so, yeah, going back to that whole point, like how can we be truly independent when there's that pressure?
Yeah, I think this is continuing that bit of the conversation we had earlier about, you know, somebody needs to make sure that we all have that kind of basic level from which to start in order to be truly independent, because otherwise you're abusing people. It's not right that somebody should be forced to go back to work in that state. It's just not right. And the other thing that really gets to me is that it's not like that has to be. You know, I tell a story quite frequently about, you know, 2 aliens in a spaceship looking down on planet Earth. And one says to the other, look at all that wealth over there. And seems like they're not really appreciating it, and they're wasting an awful lot, aren't they? And then the other one says, yeah, and look over there, there's that woman, she's just given birth to a baby a couple of days ago, and she's going back to work. There's starvation, there's death, there's famine, there's lack of medicine. And so the first one says, well, I don't know who's running this show, but shall we report back that there's no intelligent life here and move on? But it's kind of, on the one hand, it's funny, but we do have enough resources to be able to give everybody that kind of basic level that everybody kind of deserves and needs. So why can't we sort that stuff out? You've made me change my mind. I think my first example of independence was a bit of a cop-out. It was Nelson Mandela, and it was, you know, how somebody maintained the strength of purpose that he did.
That's not a cop-out. That's a good example.
Well, yeah, but it's a kind of easy go-to one, I suppose. And when you mentioned single parents, I changed to my mum. Sorry.
Don't, you'll set me off.
So my mum was a single parent from when I was about 13, and did a brilliant job. And she passed away having had motor neuron disease a long time ago now. But I remember when she was first diagnosed and she was starting not to be able to walk very well, she still insisted on dressing up properly and wearing her high heels to walk to the doctors for her appointment. And that was absolutely independence.
Yeah, definitely. She sounds boss.
Right, now, there's a final question that we need to deal with before we invite Susie back in, and that is this: what are you encouraged to do differently about independence as a result of our conversation?
Definitely speaking to Sean and asking for help a bit more, because I do that better. So for example, like, I'm going to say this, I was about to say, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I obviously am, because I'm struggling to form these words. I don't drink anymore. I don't go out a lot, and I choose to put that money into having a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week, right? I have a housekeeper that comes 3 times a week because I was sick of arguing with Sean about doing things because he doesn't see it. So she comes 3 times a week. Oh my God, I love it. We quite often, because Sean will be working from home and she'll come and I'm like, you be careful because we're going to cop off and get married because she's fucking amazing. I love her. So, and she's like, you better watch out, Sean. Me and Gemma are going to enter a relationship and get married. She's just amazing, right? I love her. And she's not been here this week because it's half term. So I was on a Zoom call yesterday. It was like our Q3 presentation Zoom call. I'm doing it, so I can't move. And I can hear there's pots downstairs clattering. So I messaged Suzanne to say, are you in my house? I'm on the quarterly Zoom, can't leave, I'm presenting. And I can hear banging. And she was like, no, I'm at home. Please let me know you're okay. And my brain had not thought that it might be Sean putting the pots in the dishwasher. Now, at no point did my brain go, Sean's come home and he's cleaning up. So when I text him and put, are you in the house? He's like, yeah. Are we having a standoff with the dishwasher? And I just put abso-fucking-lutely because I haven't finished work before 8:30, 10 o'clock any night. So I'm not doing it. There's 2 of us in this house. So for me, after this conversation, because that is what causes us the most friction. It's about the fair share and the fair load of the chores. So I am going to dust off the fair play cards from the Eve Rodsky Fair Play book. Yep. And I'm going to lay them out with Sean. He's going to hate every second of it. And he's going to be going, oh, have you bought more cards? And then I'm going to order yours. So he gets really annoyed that they arrive. You know, I said people don't do things on purpose to annoy their other half. I'm going to order loads of your value just to piss him off because I know he'll be like, oh, for God's sake. So sometimes he walks in my office and he gets the pack and he goes, pick a card, any card, and then he just puts it away and walks off again. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do as a result of this conversation. Get your cards, get the fair play cards, and have another reset of, right, how can we help each other here? Okay. And how can you help me with this backpack that I've started to put on a bit more again? Yeah. So thank you very much.
All right. So on the ValuesJam cards, just to share with you that my business partner has played this with her husband of 25 years. She's also played with both her parents, and they discovered stuff about each other that they didn't know. And so I'm kind of quietly confident, actually, that he might quite enjoy ValuesJam. Mine is today, I'm going to ask somebody for help. And I don't know what it is yet. And it might be something silly, like we're just starting to mail these out, and PayPal do a printed postage label. And I was going down to the post office because I couldn't be bothered to look at how to get one of these things done, and then I did it. So I'm going to find something that I kind of either avoid or navigate my way around because I'm too independent or proud to ask somebody to do it, and I'm going to ask them. So that's what I'm going to do. So thank you very much.
I think you should work out as well how much time you're going to save not going to the post office to do that.
Yeah.
I think that'll help you go, well, why didn't I just do this?
Yeah, I think you're right. So let's invite Susie in.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, I've been belly laughing in the background here, just thinking, oh my God, that's what Dave does as well. I think you've just, in this broadcast, probably saved about 50% of marriages if we adopt this approach. I'm sitting there thinking, how many marriages or the divorces would be prevented if we just...
I do actually want to say something on that though. Like, obviously I've been man bashing a bit there, and it can be the opposite way around. Like, I am a messy cow. Like, I leave my shoes at the bottom of the stairs, and Sean fake trips up over them all the time. He does a comedy roll on the stairs. Oh, I broke my neck. You've left your shitty trainers there again. I am an absolute pain. So it's not just women aren't perfect, men aren't slobs. We can.
Well, that's it. We are in relationship, and it's just, the thing is, it's, our stuff, and we can deal with that, but it's somebody else's stuff. But the thing that I took away, that for me, what's independence? I was like, okay, so independence is knowing I have the ability to do whatever I set my mind to, but I actually don't have to. I can ask for help, you know, and that's what's come out of this conversation. It's like, you know, I don't have to do it all on my own, and I don't have to be that martyr with the rucksack and all the rest of it. And it's just like communication. Absolutely. Yeah. I was just, and I had to belly laugh when you said about the dishwasher. I was just like, it's not just in my house, you know.
You know what I do, right? So I used to be on the radio. He calls me voiceover bitch. So I do this sometimes. I go, Sean Ray is the shittest husband the world has ever seen. Once again, he's put all of the pots on top of the dishwasher. Instead of taking the 3.5 seconds it takes to put it in the rack. Want more information? Go to SeanRayAsAKnob.com/useless. And he's like, fuck off. But our whole marriage is based on humour. That's how we deal with each other. It's just by taking the piss. Because
well,
he
the
does.
thing is, what you've cleverly done is you're still nagging to get your point across, but you've done it with humour. So you're still
in the same way he does his stunt rolls at my trainers, or he goes like, "Oh my god, you come outside, you need to see this." So like, I don't understand how this has happened, and I'm like, "Oh shit, I know what he's going to do," and he takes me to the car, and he's like, "Look at the bins, look at the lines down the car. How do we think this has happened?" Like,
I am going to completely adopt this approach. As a result of this conversation, I am going to learn to have a sense of humour.
Banter. Yeah, nag with banter and humour. It makes life so much more fun and easy.
Yeah, I need to ask you a question.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear your Richard Attenborough impersonation.
Mine? Oh gosh. Oh, you put me right on the spot there. I don't even know where to begin with that. I want to go into David Bellamy mode rather than Richard Attenborough. I'm just like,
that is another one that you can do to your other half. I have done that one before. Here we have a unique and exciting creature called the Sean, unable to think about anything apart from Call of Duty between the hours of 4 and 8 o'clock, despite the fact he has a young dependent in the form of this ginger child stood by his computer game once again in his onesie, having not brushed his teeth.
There we go.
He's on the run.
I just need to get Gemma in my house to come and do narration all throughout. But absolutely brilliant Values Jam, really entertaining, honest as well, and just completely relatable. You know, you think about independence and you maybe think about the bigger stuff, but actually it's bringing it right back down to the small everyday stuff that does piss us off, does challenge us. And I knew you would swear. It was like, talk about timing. I'm going to count how many times you swear.
You let me. That was the
record. Everybody, Gemma said, no, I'm not going to swear in this. I'm not going to swear in this. No,
but then you said that I could.
I know.
Problem. If you'd have told me I wasn't allowed, I wouldn't have done it. I'd have found new words.
It's like having a conversation in front of your parents and going, no, I'm not going to swear. Not going to swear. But anyway, thank you for an entertaining Values Jam. I can hear my cat in the background meowing there. But yes, it's over to our world changers now. So what does independence mean for you? What does it look like, sound like, feel like? And what are you going to do differently as a result of this conversation? What have you learnt? Are you going to nag your other half with banter? Are you going to, you know, what is it? Put it into your journal and do share in the comments below. I am going to batter this cat. I'm not really. I'm obviously vegan and love animals, but yeah, this cat's driving me crazy. But yeah. Just a fantastic Values Jam. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Alan. And yeah, absolutely loved this week. So it's been a pleasure jamming all week. And yeah, we'll thank you again. Here's to an independent life where we can ask for help and be vulnerable enough to ask for help. So take care, guys. Thanks again.
Here's everybody. And of course, David, not Richard.
What's that?
It's David Attenborough, isn't it? Not Richard. Richard was the actor, I think.
All right. Yes.
Right.
That's what threw me. Take care, guys. See you soon. Bye.